Yo, welcome back to the channel. So 2 years ago, I set myself off on an epic journey. A journey of biblical proportions, a journey that would define who I am as a person, and a journey that would rupture the very reality around me. I finally decided to switch to an iPhone. Okay, it's not that deep, but after being with Android for over 10 plus years, I finally made the decision to switch to an iPhone, and you can see those first impressions over here. Now, the 14 Pro Max was a great phone, still is. It was awesome that it worked amazing with my iPad. It was great that the AirPods just connected. It was just a fantastic change of scene for me after being with Android. But there was one nagging issue, and it was that it was still on a Lightning connection. I got so bad and so envious of USB-C that I started to get like nervous twitches basically every time I saw it. Finally, I made the decision to switch to an iPhone 16. And these are my first impressions and reasons why I think you should get one as well. Before we get too far into the video, I do have to let you guys know I have a giveaway for a smartphone gimbal going on right now. If you're interested in entering, definitely check out the instructions down below in the description. And if you wanted to watch a video on how the gimbal works and whatnot, definitely check out the previous video up there. Now, when scripting and researching for this review, first impressions, whatever you want to call it, I hit a roadblock or an epiphany. I don't know, I hit something. But the idea was that I felt that my criticisms and judgments were a little bit misplaced and misguided, and it all stemmed from a video that I saw where Linus Tech Tips basically was being overly positive about the iPhone, and that was like a knee-jerk reaction to everybody. I feel like we're stuck in a loop where we're expecting every new device to be this crazy announcement that's like transparent, has lasers coming out the side, and I took a step back and I realized I'm a victim of this myself. I feel that the criticisms and judgments that I have are a bit too harsh, but I realized there's this negative, I hate to use the term, but aura around the tech community where every launch is hit with like a wave of just disappointment. I'm gonna show my age a little bit here, but I remember a time when I could hear the internet dial up and make noises as it was powering up. And now I can shoot 4K 120 from a device from my pocket. Like, we've come a long way, and I'll give you plenty of reasons why I think this is a fantastic product, and hopefully I can change your perspective and viewpoint on new products coming out as well. So in case you missed it, the iPhone 16's launched about 2-3 weeks ago, and I got my hands on one finally, and it's been great. I've been using it for about a week now, and it's been fantastic. It's all I ever needed from an iPhone, and frankly, I don't think it can get much better. Now, what's different from a iPhone 15 and iPhone 16? Here's a quick rundown. The 16 still have the USB-C that they introduced in the last generation. 16's regular models now have the 2000 nit peak brightness screens that were in, some of the Pro models, although the screens are still 60 Hz, so that's something to keep in mind. And USB 3.0 speeds are still reserved for the Pros, so the regulars are still on USB 2.0 speeds. There's a all-new main camera and ultra-wide camera for the Pros, a 48 megapixel fusion camera is what they're calling it, and it's capable of 4K 120, like I said, in Apple ProRes Apple Log on the Pros. And on the regulars, it's still a fantastic camera, just can't do the 4K 120. Now, the new gimmick for this year is something called camera control. Kind of a cool feature, I guess. It just needs a little bit more third-party implementation before I think I can really use it. It's got a few quirks that they got to figure out, but definitely a cool idea nonetheless. And finally, they did bring the action button that was in the Pro phones down to the regular phones. So this is 1 year where the lineup is, pretty even across. I think you could happily give somebody the advice of getting a regular 16 rather than the Pro, and I think they'll be pretty happy with it overall. Now, to explain why I think this phone is so good, I need to take you guys back in time. I don't know if you guys remember, but the iPhones used to launch with something called an S model. I called it a slight upgrade, but I'm not sure if that's what it's actually called. But either way, say a iPhone 4 launched, the next year something called an iPhone 4S would launch. And the 4S was basically a 4, but an improvement. It had better antennas, better battery, better software optimization. Overall, it was a better product. It was a more refined product of the same phone. Now, this was never an issue. Everybody knew that the 4S was a refinement year. I'm not sure why Apple got rid of that nomenclature, and ever since then it's been downhill. But for some reason, people seem to forget that there are going to be down years, and there are going to be years when the phone doesn't, take a drastic leap forward. So I see this phone as a 15S. So I don't know if you guys remember, but the 15 launched with a slew of problems: overheating, camera issues, bending problems, glass cracking, all kinds of stuff. And the 16 is a more refined version of the 15, which I already think is probably the most perfect iPhone. In my eyes, the biggest Achilles for the iPhone was the proprietariness, right? The fact that when you get into an Apple ecosystem, you have a walled garden. And the fact that you have a Lightning connection kind of upsells that idea. But with the 15, when they finally announced that it was going to be USB-C, so you can use all these cool peripherals, you can film an Apple log, you can use SSDs, external mics, it was a whole new world. I'm not really sure how to explain it, but it was amazing, and it was a great leap forward, and I am a victim to that. I criticized the phone pretty heavily, but now in hindsight, it was actually a pretty remarkable launch. And the iPhone 16 is no different, and I think it is a refinement of the idea. It's, you know, taking what is already great in the 15 and making it even better. And I think that's a good thing, because the idea that a new phone launches should be, you know, a refinement. As far as buyers are concerned and buyer's remorse, you don't want to buy a phone 1 year and have it look completely different the next year. That's too short of a period for, I think, for anybody to recoup that. And I think everybody's losing sight on the fact that a phone is a tool. So whether it be organization or messages or emails or videography or whatever you're using your phone for, it's still a tool. And the bottom line is that the 15 was good, but the 16 is better. So I don't really know why there's so much negativity around the space. And that's not just Apple products, right? Like, I remember when the new Fold came out and everybody was like, well, it's basically the same thing. Well, it's not. It's more refined. It's a better product. The hinge works better. The screen is better. There's a lot that goes on into R&D. Now, I'm not saying the big corporations are free and the product is somehow flawless. I think the criticisms and judgments are a bit misplaced. Okay, flaws in the 16. There's quite a few, but I think they can all be kinked out because they're all software related as far as I'm concerned. The biggest being that it didn't launch with Apple Intelligence, which is really weird considering that they built this thing from the ground up for Apple Intelligence. Now, personally, I don't really care about all that AI feature stuff, so it wasn't that big of a hit for me. But if that's something you're buying the phone specifically for, that might be somewhat of a hit for you. Another issue I've been seeing is something to do with iOS 18's beta, where there's a problem with the touch responsiveness, where the iPhone is having somewhat of a problem getting rid of accidental touches. So that should be fixed. Apple is pretty fast with those. And the rest of the stuff is just Apple being Apple. So, you know, they added some customization to iOS 18, but in classic Apple fashion, it's half-baked. For example, you can only tint dark icons. You can only remove the labels when the icons are large. It's small stuff that definitely seem to add up quite a bit. Now, I criticized Apple last year definitely about, you know, their lack of communication, where I said they weren't clear about the difference between the pros and the regulars, and that's continuing this year as well. So the cable that's actually included in the 16 Pro Max does not do USB 3.0, even though the pros are capable of that. Apple does not mention that the phones have 8 gigs of RAM across the board, but I guess most of Apple's clientele doesn't really care. And the batteries are up as well, 8 to 9% across the board, but there's no real numerical value of how that could affect, you know, your day-to-day use. Like I said, in all grand scheme of things considered, I think this is a fantastic launch, and hopefully this is a, you know, a new light and a new way of seeing these product launches, because like I said, the 16 is a refinement and a better version of the 15, which is what you want to expect. It's not like Apple went backwards and somehow made the phone worse by adding camera control. It's just that people seem to be disappointed that it doesn't have some crazy new features, but they can't really do that every year because that doesn't make sense from a technological point. Kind of a weird video, I know, I'm sorry about that. Kind of a ranty video, and I'm really sorry about that as well. And for those of you who have stuck for so long in the video, the entire video has been filmed with Apple Log ProRes on the 16 Pro Max. So just a testament to show you how good the camera on the new system really is. Thank you so much for watching the video, guys. I hope you liked it. If you like it, you gotta like it. If you don't, you gotta like it either way, or else your mom and I are gonna be having a conversation. Until next time, take care, stay safe, stay sane, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.